You just can't stop at foreplay. You have to go all the way in order for you not to be a criminal under the law.
Oh, the devil is in the
so as you can
details,
see,
huh?
yeah, I mean, it's absurd. Like, why the hell would a court, a judge, or a police officer really care about what you are doing with your party?
Yeah. Come on.
Sri Lanka Insurance Motor Plus, driven by you.
Hey everybody, welcome to The Hot Seat. My name is Blessie. I'm from the morning show here on Light 87, and it's brought to you by Sri Lanka Insurance Corporation. Today, featured on The Hot Seat is Aritha Wickramasinghe.
Hey Bless, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on this show.
Yeah, I mean, everybody already knows you, Aritha. You're an international finance lawyer by profession, but beyond that, you've done so much. You've made quite an impact, of course, on society, not just in Sri Lanka, but around the world with some of the efforts that you've made and that you've been a part of. It's just incredible, you know, just looking back, to be consistently ranked as one of the most influential LGBT business leaders, I think is just phenomenal. Now, you moved back to Sri Lanka in 2016, and you're currently the Director of Equality at i-Probono. How difficult has it been lobbying for LGBTIQ rights here in Sri Lanka versus out in the UK or some of those other places that you lived in?
I mean, look, these are very, very different countries at very different stages of their legal evolution in handling LGBT issues. The UK decriminalized in the 1960s. So in a way, Sri Lanka is about 60 years behind the UK and many other countries that have moved on. The UK has also developed a really comprehensive body of law to deal with non-discrimination on against LGBT people. Again, Sri Lanka has not developed that. And the knowledge around the need for such laws is really lacking here. So moving here and working on advocacy to change laws and mindsets around LGBT issues, I wouldn't say it's been easy, but I've been lucky because there have been a lot of people before me who's been doing a lot of the groundwork. So there are some incredible organizations in Sri Lanka, whether it's Equal Ground, National Transgender Network, Young Out Here. They have been doing a lot of the groundwork already.
Now, specifically, if we were to look at India and how most recently they decriminalized same-sex relations, which was huge, you know, in a country like India, to see that happening, kind of, did it give us a sliver of hope in terms of that potentially happening here as well? And what's taking us so long?
I will tell you what's taking us so long.
Oh, good. Break it down.
Sri Lanka, you see, in many countries across the world, they have a constitution, a written constitution, and that's the supreme body of law which sets the standards and the governance structures of a country. Now, any normal civilized society, any law or regulation or a decision which violates that constitution and those constitutional rights and principles, those laws would be vetoed or pretty much declared null and void because they are unconstitutional. Now, that was a route that was followed in India. The argument was that Section 377, which is the equivalent of 365 and 365A here in Sri Lanka, that the anti-gay laws were actually unconstitutional because it violated the right to equality, the right to dignity, and the freedom from discrimination. And the court said yes. You know, the way this law is being applied is discriminatory, therefore it's unconstitutional. Now, in Sri Lanka, unfortunately, we can't do that because Sri Lanka's constitution says that all existing laws, irrespective of whether they violate the constitution, are valid and therefore take supremacy over our constitutional rights to equality, dignity, and freedom from discrimination. This is why we have a whole plethora of laws which discriminate not just against the LGBT community, but women in particular. Women are the main target of these discriminatory laws. And the reason why we're still having debates over, say, the MMDA and rules like women can't go buy alcohol, why we're still having these debates and not going to court and getting a court to overturn these laws is because Sri Lankan courts don't have the power to overturn these laws.
Wow.
And even modern laws, once a law is passed by Parliament, there is no way that the constitutionality of that law can be challenged. So it means that the only avenue we actually have in overturning these laws is trying to convince our 225 parliamentarians to repeal them.
Wow.
Now, so it's not easy. It's quite challenging, and this is why we haven't been able to step up to where India is.
Do you think that one of the ways that politicians or the government is kind of maybe supporting the community is by not fully enforcing the law to the extent of it?
No, I disagree with that because the law is being enforced. And frankly, politicians don't really have a say in it because it is the law.
It is the law.
And it's the police that are enforcing it. Now, the law itself, it's a very funny piece of legislation. I don't know, have you ever had the chance to read through it?
I haven't, not personally, no.
Okay, do you want me to tell what it actually
Yeah, because I feel like I've had this conversation with Rosanna as well from Equal Grounds. Like you mentioned, they're doing some incredible work, and again, really pushing the idea of change as well. And yeah, but please, I think it's important that our listeners understand what the law entails.
Okay, so there are two laws on this. One is Section 365 of the Penal Code. And Section 365 says it basically criminalizes carnal intercourse against the order of nature between man, woman, and animal. And then we have a second law, which is Section 365A of the Penal Code, and that criminalizes gross indecency between anyone. Now, what do you think carnal intercourse against the order of nature between man, woman, and animal means?
Yeah.
And what is gross indecency between anyone?
Yeah.
And both these offenses can be committed in public or private. I mean, these terms are so vague.
Yeah.
They could literally mean anything.
Totally.
The police officer or a judge wants it to mean. And if we look at case law, it does mean anything they want it to mean.
Yeah. So you're saying that even if a gross indecency, for example, could be even two people making out on a beach in public, and anyone that arrests them can say, look, it's as per this law, they're in violation of it, and it is what it is.
Blessie, I don't know whether you recall a few months ago, there was a news article of how police officers in Anuradhapura arrested 200 couples in a park for things like holding hands and hugging and kissing.
Yeah.
They used this law. They used the gross indecency law.
Right.
These laws are so vague, they mean absolutely nothing, and they can mean absolutely everything too. If you look at the carnal intercourse against the order of nature law between man, woman, and animal, again, it's not specific to homosexual acts, but it very much includes same-sex acts. But it looks at sexual activities, sexual acts which are criminalized. So it's not the orientations, it's the actions that are criminalized.
Right.
So, for example, carnal intercourse against order of nature, courts have held that it includes anal sex. So sodomy, the offense of sodomy or buggery, as it was originally called. And it was originally thought, okay, only to gay men, and that is what gay people do. They just have sex. Yeah. And therefore, this law will be enough to criminalize gay men, basically. Yeah. It was criminalization of gay men. And of course, gay people are not the only ones who are having anal sex. Heterosexual people are also having anal sex.
It's 2021.
And then I mean, they've been doing it way before 2021.
Easily.
I think since the evolution of humanity, it's just normal to explore human sexuality. And of course, courts have evolved their definition of this term. So originally it was anal sex. Then courts said, actually, you know, oral sex is also carnal intercourse against the order of nature. And then the court said, actually, you know what, any form of sex without a reproductive purpose is carnal intercourse against the order of nature. Because the only reason why people have sex is to produce children.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. And then, of course, when the court, you know, made a judgment like this, there were a lot of complaints by actually ex-wives and ex-girlfriends against their ex-husbands, saying, you know, I had to perform oral sex on my husband, therefore it's carnal intercourse against the order of nature. And the courts generally took this view that the person performing the oral sex, for example, the more submissive partner was always seen as a victim.
Guilty. Oh, the victim.
Yeah, no, as the victim, the submissive partner was seen as a victim, whereas the more the one probably receiving the oral sex was seen as the perpetrator. And so what happened was actually a lot of straight men were now getting prosecuted and sent to jail for receiving oral sex from their, you know, ex-girlfriends and wives. And, you know, the courts then realized, oh, this is a problem because now, you know, heterosexual people are also included in this.
It's like a thing now.
So how can we carve them out? And then the court said, in another judgment, another case, the court said, actually, you know what? Oral sex is okay as long as it leads to natural vaginal sex. You just can't stop at foreplay. You have to go all the way in order for you not to be a criminal under the law.
Oh, the devil is in the details, huh?
Yeah. I mean, it's absurd. Like, why the hell would a court, a judge, or a police officer really care about what you are doing with your partner?
Come on.
And there have been some other, you know, this is not the end of judgments. You know, there was another judgment which said thigh sex, inserting your penis between the thighs of another individual, that is also carnal intercourse against all nature, because obviously you cannot reproduce children.
Right. So there's a nice long list here of things that would constitute, like you said, that would go against the law based on this very broad, vague law.
And the final one is even funnier, which is mutual masturbation. The court said that when you masturbate an individual, you form an orifice with your hand, and when the penis goes through it, that's intercourse. And obviously you cannot reproduce children that way. And therefore that is also carnal intercourse against the order of nature.
Wow. So that would put everybody in jail then. Right. Good luck trying this.
I know.
So
use it against LGBT people mostly because they know that we are an easier target.
Right.
We know when we're having police knows when we're having, you know, when we're having an intimate relationship that, you know, it's not possible for us to biologically produce children, and therefore the law is largely used against LGBT people, which has led to a practical criminalization of our lives. So even though by law, technically, technical interpretation of the law, it should not criminalize LGBT people, but in a practical application of the law, it's led to criminalization.
Now, with people that are on the other side of the law, people that find themselves being tried and arrested as a result of the enforcement of this law, what support is there out there for them? Could you share a little bit about what you do and who they can reach out to?
No, certainly. I mean, look, if you are the victim of any form of arrest, harassment, or prosecution based on this law by law enforcement, so by the police, my advice is always reach out to us, to i-Probono. You can reach out to me. You can contact me through my social media. I can share my email with you here, which you can put on your page. We have a group of lawyers who are ready and trained to defend you and to challenge the application of these laws. We are already, there are lawyers who are already representing about 9 individuals in cases where they are being prosecuted. Unfortunately, a lot of the time, they come to us when they've already gone through lawyers who are not very supportive or sensitive. So they're already in this sort of long, drawn-out case. Exactly.
I just want to thank you again for the insight into all of this, into the law, what that constitutes. I'm sure a lot of us listening in really didn't have an idea of where, in essence, we could all be incriminated. And I think it's so important for us to be able to know, to be able to do something about it. So thank you, Aritha, again, for the work that you're doing with i-Probono and for bringing to light some of these issues that's so important to be, to be talked about. And, we wish you all the best, and anything that we could do as a network to be able to support the work that you're doing on the forefront of, decriminalizing same-sex relations and furthering the cause of, inclusivity and diversity and saying no to discrimination. We're all for it. So good luck, all the best, and we hope to speak to you soon.
Sri Lanka Insurance Motor Plus.